bright lights. Welcome to Architecting. This is really the place where we question the status quo and do it anyway. And that is why I'm so excited today to have on as my guest my friend, my ACHA colleague, Noam Platt. Noam is a healthcare project architect at Erdman, and he's also the founder of a nonprofit, the most innovative nonprofit out there, as he says, called MakeGood. So welcome, Noam.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here again.
Oh, so one thing I do want to make sure that our listeners understand is that when I founded Architecting, I wanted to give back a portion of the profits to a nonprofit as a way of just creating more collaboration in the industry. And my original thought was, oh, every quarter I'll pick a new nonprofit and I'll look at groups that are, doing things to advance architecture. But I've really resonated with what you're doing with Make Good because you do bring your perspective as a healthcare architect, but also as somebody who is very good with technology and is an innovative thinker. And I just think that's what architecting is really all about. And so we have donated both in 2023 and 2024 and purchased your kind of hallmark item, your toddler mobility assist chair. And I really am excited to have you back on the podcast. It was about a year ago that we
Yeah.
and to talk more about the work you've done, because you've done amazing stuff just in that past year.
Well, thank you for your generosity. It means a lot, and we are we're truly a design nonprofit, and part of that is architectural, part of that is kind of smaller scale stuff, but also some larger scale system design too. And so I can't believe it's been a year. It's wild how time is flying, and all the things that have happened since then and continue to happen. So once again, thank you and your listeners for that. It's very kind.
So, one of the things that I like about you personally is that you really do believe in doing it anyway, asking forgiveness, not permission. If there's something you believe in, finding a way to make it happen. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what inspired you to take this path in your career, both, in your work as a healthcare architect, but also why it's important to have this other channel for things you're passionate about.
It's a great question. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this, and my staff has actually asked me about this recently, and they're almost all people from the disability community who then we've worked with and then come work with us um, about why I do it. And there's some events that precipitated Make Good, which was having the local family reach out to start a project and work on that. But why I've continued to do it is really about that people with disabilities and people who are non-disabled, which is you just aren't disabled yet, which is you know every those two groups, those two phrases encompasses everybody on the planet. And so I don't see a distinction at all between disabled and non-disabled. It's we're all in the same timeline together. And you know it's kind of a choice. It's like when you do get disabled, do you want to live in a world that's well adapted and designed really well for the full breadth of your human experience, or do you want to live in the one that's not? And I personally want to live in the former and have the tools and environments that are responsive. And so that's a big reason why we do it. But then the other piece is just that, like, I believe it's some of the highest and best use of skills as an architect to do this kind of work. Um, it's when I started doing this disability design work, I kind of realized very quickly that like very little design work has actually been put into this field. It's pretty nascent, and it's one of these things where if you spend an hour, you get 100x return on that time you spend doing it. And a lot of the problems we solve are actually, excuse me, are actually quite simple to solve and can be done in an hour or a number of hours or a week. It doesn't have to be this multi-year process. Now, there are plenty of projects that are like that we've undertaken as well, and they're very difficult. But just like trying this stuff, when I started, I wasn't a great designer of these things. It's things you learn along the way. And just like all design work, it's iterative. When you try to do anything new in life, if you want to start an organization, if you want to just try a new project, you kind of have to try it and fail. And it's just like all the other design work we do. And then you see what works and you try again, and eventually you will get there. And the whole process of doing Make It has been iterative as well. And it's led to us to learning a lot, getting much better at design work. And then it's also fun. It's about exploration of what's possible. And I think that's really important that people keep that in mind, that if you try to do anything out, you're doing these things outside of work because there's something inside you that wants to do it. It should be fun. You should be getting enjoyment out of it. Um, I had an employee who was helping on admin side step away to do her own thing. She wants to be an artist and stuff. And she was helping with some of the finance stuff, and it was just kind of stressing her out. And I told her, I was like, hey, if we're not having fun doing this, then like we need to change our systems and figure it out, because this is supposed to be a good time. And I truly believe that if you're enjoying it, you can see it in your work. You can see it in the design work you do. And so you just have to just give it a shot. And I tell people who, like, when I talk to students as well, like, if you're looking for a field to have a big impact, this is the one. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done in assistive technology, and we need all of the people, all of the creative thinkers out there to help us along the way.
Yeah, and I think there's a certain courage that comes with doing work that you feel lit up about, and you kind of have this no matter what. And it emboldens you to reach out to people that you might have been afraid to reach out to, or to take chances you might not have otherwise taken.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have when you're on the right path, you're not worried about embarrassment, you're not worried about messing up even, because you're trying to do it for the right reasons and you have a noble goal in mind. Um, I think that's been one of the most fun things about being part of Make It is that I can reach out to anybody on LinkedIn and pitch like, hey, will you do a publication about Make It? Will you join us? Are you interested? And one of our new things is now working with people at the highest level of whatever field they're in. So I recently met with a guy who he took this adaptive shoes company from their slip-in shoes called Kidsix from like 0 to 9 figures as a marketer. And I called him up, he was taking meetings because he just left that company looking for the next thing. And I was like, hey, we can't really pay you like what you're going to make as a chief marketing officer. But like, if you're looking for a way to give back to society, like we'd love to have you. And he was like, send me some stuff I can look at. And I'm interested, who knows if that'll work out, but you do enough of those and you'll get the number of hits that will help you. So um, I think people can sense that you have the confidence that what you're doing is the right thing. And ultimately, everybody, regardless of where they are in professional life, or their students, or parents of people with disabilities or whatever, they ultimately want to give back to society. And that's kind of common across everybody. Not everyone gets the chance to do that. And if you offer people that chance and say, you can come along with me, I have a vehicle for you to like, and don't put rules on it. Let them kind of figure out what they want to do. People will naturally be drawn to that. Um, I think all of us went to school, architecture school especially, to try to like a better society. And I know a lot of engineers that do the same thing. And then you get out of school and you go work for a company, and your job is to serve a client and make money, or maybe you're lucky enough to go into public service and your job is to protect public health, which is also very good. But it's not as direct of a betterment, I think, that a lot of people are looking for. And so if you can offer them a chance to participate, then they take it.
And that phrase you used, come with me, to me, that is the core of the definition of leadership. a lot of people think leaders have to be in charge or manage or direct, but really, as a leader, you're the visionary, and it's your job to hold that big vision and to inspire people to come with you.
Yeah, and I tell that to my staff too. We don't have a rigid workplace at all. I mean, it's very much like, what are you interested in? What do you want to learn? What do you want to try? And like, what can I do to support you doing that? And, you know, there's no rules about having to go to the office or having mandatory whatever. We have a meeting every couple of weeks and we have check-ins if people want it. Um, but yeah, it's really about allowing them to explore and grow. And that I know it just benefits our organization as they gain new skills and try new things to come up with new ideas.
So, talk a little bit about how Make Good is structured, because I know you are working full time, and I'm not so sure about your staff, what their work schedules are. So, how do you structure the organization and bring people together?
So it's really like nights and weekends kind of work. And we have a great studio we moved into in October at a local university. Kind of, they have like a retail park associated with the university that we're at. And one of the great one of the great things is we use 3D printing, which doesn't require you to be sitting there doing work. So, I can send stuff actually from my house, and then at lunchtime run up there. It's really a few minutes from my house, just down the street, check on things and get back to work. And I also will work from up there as well. All my staff has other jobs and careers, and it's really part-time work for everybody. So we don't have any full-time employees yet, but it seems to be working with part-time, and people really, they can work on the weekends, they work in the evenings. Some people only work 4 days at their regular job and they pick up a day here at MakeGood. But it's all project-based work with deliverables and timelines. So it's there's not like a rigid, I need you working on this from 2 to 4. It's like, do you need another weekend to get this thing done? What can I do to help, sort of deal. So I try to make it a workplace that I'd love to be an employee at. That's really was my goal the whole time. Um, so yeah, it's still relatively chill for everybody, but together we can get a lot done.
And I think you referred to them as your happy warriors.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're all people, most, I think, except for the exception of one, they're all people who we did projects with. And we did devices for, design stuff for, and then they turned around and said, like, hey, this is really great. I want to help do this for other people. And so that's how we've been hiring, and it's worked out really, really well because these are people who understand the mission, and really people with disabilities are like, talking from a kind of a larger legal societal framework, is like a lot of people with disabilities are kind of priced out of the workforce. There's all these arcane rules about making money and not being able to work and stuff like this, which is absolutely ridiculous. But what ends up happening is there's actually a massive latent workforce that isn't fully empowered to work, who have incredible skills. And I'm not saying that's who we've hired necessarily, um, but people with disabilities are the best problem solvers you'll ever hire. And it's because they've learned to deal with these systems that are really designed to make like they work, but you have to really work them. And they figure those out. And so they really are the most kind of productive and clever people I've ever worked with. And it really is like we have a really great community now, building around MakeGood doing that.
Yeah, and this all started with you developing something to help a friend with a disability, and then a larger community of people being aware of what you were doing. So people coming to you saying, hey, I have a problem. What can you do to help me?
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of it is using the skills that we use in architecture, which is asking them, is like, okay, what's the problem? Okay, now what's actually causing that problem? And that's a big thing for us, is let's solve for what I like to call the main problem and not for symptoms. And, there's a lot of symptoms out there, but And I've found 99% of the time, the main problem is so simple. And if you can find that, that only takes an hour to fix. So, um, I use this example a lot, but my friend Ashley, she works for us now. She's a head of communications. Her seatbelt on her wheelchair would fall on the ground and she'd have to like spend 30 minutes a day trying to pick it up. And this is a very common problem for power wheelchair users. And her therapist told her she had to stretch more. Her occupational therapist told her she had to carry a claw around the whole time. Those are symptoms. Okay. So we made her a claw holder. That's a symptom. The main problem is her wheelchair didn't have a place to dock her buckle, right? And that once you solve that, the symptoms go away completely. And that takes an hour to solve, right? That's a very simple device. So um it's really about like just like in architecture, it's about working with people, understanding how they live their lives day to day, listening to them, and then working with them to draw up the solution. Nothing we do just like comes out of my mind and I'm just like, oh, that'd be a cool device. It's all based on people's experiences that come to us and say, I have this specific thing I'm trying to do that I need help with. And then invariably that one person's specific need, there's millions of other people with the same need like that out there.
Yeah, it often feels like the more specific a problem is, the more general it actually is. There's a lot of universal applications for it.
Definitely, definitely.
But I think that that idea of finding a way of saying yes when you could have said, I don't have time or I'll get to that is a really important distinction. It's how you got led to create a whole nonprofit business that continues to grow. And, you know, what do you have to say to people who maybe don't feel that their day job is fully utilizing their talents or passions, but feel drained and exhausted and like they don't know how to do anything that's going to really fully utilize and develop those passions?
I've been there. It's tough. And I think you just have to find that, and they're going to be different for everybody, but you have to find that one thing that kind of ignites you, that kind of you do feel that little flame of passion that you can follow. And especially in the case of disability, it's like it's it's like taking the red pill. You can't look away. You can't, there's no like for me, there's no like going back. There's no shutting down MakeGood and being like, well, that was fun. It's like all these problems will continue to persist basically in perpetuity. Even if we grow, make it into a multi-billion dollar company or whatever, it's still all those problems still going to persist. It won't be enough. Um, there's a lot of things like that out there, and people, you find it, you see, you see it in every nonprofit that's been founded and everybody who works there. Um, if you start looking, you'll start seeing problems that one, you can't look away from, and then two, you have the ability to solve critically. And then once you have that mix, there's a passion, there's a problem, and you have the skills to solve it, then I think you start to feel a lot more empowered about like, okay, how do I start doing this? What's the V1 look like? What's the beta version look like? And just start. I mean, I didn't start Make It out of a vacuum. There were other organizations that helped me. Makers Making Change in Canada, Tikkun Olam Makers in Israel, both existing disability tech organizations that I joined. I was a chapter leader, I joined as a member. They showed me a lot and taught me a lot about this stuff. And then you can take that and morph it into your own thing. And we take their devices that they designed and redesign them all the time to make them better and cooler and easier to make and all this sort of thing. So I think that's critical too, is finding some like-minded people who can, they don't have to necessarily mentor you, but they can at least give you a hand and kind of inspire you as well.
Yeah, that willingness to volunteer. And like you said, you started at a much smaller scale of just being a part of existing organizations,
Yep. Yep.
being willing to learn, being willing to be engaged, not just be a member, which is important too. And forge those networks, and ultimately then you do become a voice in the industry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went from with Tom, I won a global design competition they had in 2021, and then the past 3 years I've been a judge for the same competition. I think it's just the natural progression of things, and um, you start out with the skills you have, and it's a lot, especially for people who are done with college. Um, but as you get this kind of real world experience, um, those skills grow exponentially. And so for me, doing Make Good has been true creative exploration outside, totally outside of work that has allowed me to experiment with design, experiment with fabrication, and then all of that feeds back into the architecture work and allows you to be more creative at work and come up with more innovative solutions. And you're designing buildings for people with disabilities too. Every building we do is for that. Um, so there's this like really interesting way it kind of gets mixed back in because it changes your psyche a bit and it changes how you think about the world.
Yeah, there's a feedback loop that happens then. And, I always say nothing is ever wasted. So everything you do is strengthening your specific skill set. And that is going to then show in whatever you do, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And including that willingness to be that unflinching advocate. It had to get developed in order to get you on the path to make good and to build up make good. But then, like you said, you can't turn that off. Once you've developed that way of working, you're going to work that way with clients on projects as well.
Absolutely. And it's made me a more empathetic project leader at work too, and not just with clients, with my coworkers. It's everybody in all aspects of life brings their unique abilities, and it's really about making sure that they are supported in those abilities and have the opportunity to grow. And um, we're working on projects right now. I'm working on a big rehab project at work. That's almost all people with disabilities, intensive outpatient rehab. That's been really, really rewarding. We are actually very fortunate to be asked to review a new project going up at Gordon's Wonderland, which is a theme park for kids with disabilities, and adults. It's a new kind of hotel they're working on. And so we're able to bring our staff's lived experience traveling with power chairs and all of these things into the architectural space and make some really great recommendations on, they don't have to change the entire building, but maybe half of the floor, right? Maybe a wing we can mix up a little bit and modify and kind of look at some new experimental ways of doing hospitality design. And my goal is to take lessons that we learned from that and like, hey, let's publish a little model on Hyper or something that's public that other people doing hotels can look at. And so I really believe the knowledge sharing is critical. And it's a great way to get people on your side as well.
Absolutely. And, this is training that you got through following your passion and being willing to be generous with your time. And it's now paying dividends in your career as a healthcare architect. And I want to stress those are opportunities you could not have gotten working for an architecture firm. And no training or classes would have gotten that for you. It had to come from pursuing something with, with kind of unrelenting passion, I should say, that you were willing to learn and grow and develop because it mattered to you. And then it pays off. So it's not just, oh, I put all this time in and it feels good that I did this. No, it actually makes you a better architect. It gives you a skill set you could not have otherwise gotten.
When I started Make It, I knew somehow there'd be payoff, not necessarily financially at all, but like I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, it's this like huge amount of skills and personal resilience and willingness to fail that you learn doing what I call like these real world projects that are out there working directly with somebody to affect their life. So, yeah, like you said, I think that's a great term. Nothing is wasted. And everything is an opportunity to grow. And, you know, Make Good to me is one massive experiment. And we've tried plenty of things that have wasted tons of time and money. I mean, I could go on and on about the things, initiatives we've tried and things that just failed completely. But that's like, we had a good time doing it and we learned from it, and we're wiser and more savvy for the next go round. Um, so yeah, I mean, it really is. Yeah, design skills are so precious, and I can't emphasize this enough. Like it's like 0.006% of the population or something is a registered architect. Like it's basically nobody. Yet we're making all these decisions for everybody. And that's a really precious thing. It's a huge responsibility. And I personally believe that that responsibility extends beyond the stamp. It extends beyond the project sheets and it extends into like the lives of your community around you. And um, nobody's going to come and do this work. Nobody else is on deck to come and do this stuff. It's really, I realized that very early on. It's like really up to us, the people who have these skills, to like make something and try it and make it again, um, to affect change. And I know already the work that MakeGood's done, like will be felt for generations because of some of the devices we've made. I think will long outlive me. You know, their design will.
Yeah,
People will
they
be
will.
making them and using them for decades. And it wasn't a huge amount of effort. I did all of this, I like to say I'm actually a pretty lazy guy. Like I don't work insanely hard. I did all of this, while having a full-time job. Um, and be married with my lovely wife and us having a great relationship as well, and dogs and hobbies and all friends and all the other things. Um, and I think that goes to show there's like a testament that like there's a big opportunity in this field and there's a lot of work to be done still.
Yeah, and you mentioned while we were talking that 1 hour of an expert's time is equivalent of about 20 hours of a novice's time. And you've leveraged that, like you were saying, by inviting experts from other industries or other skill sets, like maybe finance or marketing, to come and help you. But I think the same is true for an architect. It doesn't take that much to really help somebody.
That's exactly right. And architects are so skilled at this stuff. Sometimes we just don't even know it. We're so stuck just kind of like, first of all, we're all just working around each other. So we don't have really that much exposure to like the wider world sometimes. And then, but yeah, the design work, I'm sure any of your architects in training and the interior designers and all of the, people who are doing design work are listening. The design work you do is extremely valuable. And the best, highest paid professionals in other fields couldn't touch it. I mean, like 1 hour of my design work is probably equivalent to 80 hours of somebody, not so, like somebody who's a CEO, right? It's just totally different skills.
Hmm.
And it's good to learn the skills of the marketing and the CEO, and I've tried. But something one of the things I failed at and realized that like there are people out there who that's their passion. That's what ignites them. And it's more effective to let them do that and bring them along than me trying or you trying to do everything yourself too. So, it's just about playing your strengths and kind of what's the highest and best use of your time. And for us designers, it's doing design work, it's experimentation, and I think that's the most fun stuff there is. So good for us.
Exactly. Yeah, and also this idea that we can build our network, we can forge partnerships. You used a term when we were talking earlier about making an ecosystem, and that's a really interesting way to look at it because now you've kind of got yourself surrounded in an environment where you have people You got a guy for that. You can reach out when you need people, or you could share something you're doing, and someone in your network is going to see it and go, oh my gosh, I know someone who could help with that, or I would like to be involved, or did you know about this or that resource? And so it gets easier as you build that ecosystem.
Yeah, it's about building the network, and um, going back to what we were saying earlier, if you're doing something for the right reasons, um, that's, just to make the world a better place, just to help your fellow, person, people will see that, and they can intuitive, just like you can, you can intuitively tell when somebody's doing something like that, and you'll find people that want to help you. Not everybody, but the majority of people, and not everyone has the time, or they're trying to figure out their own thing, but people will approach you more often than not, and offer their time and be part of that network.
And
And
you
my
don't
advice,
need everybody, right? You
you
only
don't need
need one
everybody.
person.
Yeah, you only need and you really only want people that are true believers, and want to give it, the time and effort it deserves. And my advice is to everybody: write their information down somewhere. Don't be like me and wait a couple years before starting a database about your contacts. So like get, the I think systems is really important, and something I've learned. I use Notion for running my nonprofit. It's really cool. And like now we have a huge database of like all of our contacts, all the projects we've done, all the companies people work at, and it's all kind of linked together. And so we can actually map this web of like all our activities. And that's really helpful in finding new partners too.
Yeah, you can't underestimate the power of that network, of being able to, first of all, have the courage to share what you're doing. You put a lot on social media, and I realize you also have people that post on behalf of MakeGood, but that's
No, it's
important,
just me.
right? It needs to be in front of people all the time, because otherwise they may not see it if you posted it yesterday because they didn't go on LinkedIn or Instagram yesterday. But today they're there. And when they see it, they then have the opportunity to be engaged with it. And even if all they did was like it, it helped more people to see it and be aware. So everything counts. Everything is part of building it up and making it happen. So before we close, because I know you are somebody who I know is so passionate, who has this no matter what attitude about the things you care about, and I'm like that too. So I always get really excited talking to you because I feel like, yes, yes, let's keep going. Let's keep doing that. But um, I did want you to share with everyone how they could help contribute to your ecosystem at Make Good, and whether it's design help or financial assistance or just helping to promote what you're doing.
Absolutely. So, if you want to donate, certainly, makegood.design is our website. There's a donate button there and take you to our donation portal. And that's, being a monthly recurring donor is really nice and helpful. So if you have the resources, or if your company has the resources to do that, $10 a month is actually great. Um, but like if you're in school, especially, if you're a student out there, talk to your design professors about doing some assistive technology projects. We work with a lot of universities and advise them on doing these kinds of projects. There's actually some great competitions you can enter that are pretty winnable. Tom, that organization I mentioned in Israel, tomglobal.org, has a global innovation challenge each year with thousands of dollars in prizes. Really, really no great competition to be a part of. Um, I think there are some volunteer opportunities for Make It directly. We try not to like take on so many volunteers because it becomes its own thing to manage. But you know, I think everybody can emulate a little piece of what we're doing in their own communities. I mean, reach out in your community, see who needs help, and and try to solve their problems. And we'll help you do that. Absolutely. And also for architects out there, grab a wheelchair and go through your projects. Like if you've never tried to open a door in a wheelchair, I think you're doing a bit of a disservice to society. And I'm not saying that punitively. Something I didn't do for a while. It's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. It requires a lot of coordination and like a lot of people have trouble with it. And it just gives you a totally different perspective on the stuff you're specifying. This is up to us. And I think that gets lost. And so if you're an architect, like keep that in mind. It's not just it's not just a door schedule. Okay. It's a way to like somebody's empowered or disempowered. And so keep that in mind when you're doing your projects. But I think most importantly, reach out in your community within your own family probably and realize that like many of the problems that they might be having related to accessibility are actually really solvable. And feel empowered to solve it, knowing that I could do it in an hour. There's nothing, I don't have any special sauce design skills. I'm not like this incredible designer. It's like really practical, simple stuff that you're already doing in your job. And so I want to encourage more architects to just think about these things with that framework and then take them on themselves.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting and sharing an update on Make Good and really just being inspirational. I feel really excited. We're doing this interview first thing in the morning, and now I feel really excited to go do good work.
Good. Excellent. Well, thank you again. It's been great chatting with you.